All right, everybody, welcome to episode 54 of the Fantasy Timeline, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. I'm Josh at Real Fantasy TL. I'm with my main man, Bill at Super Duper Flex. How you doing, man?
Doing good. Yeah, we're getting into the nitty gritty now for playoff time, so it's pretty exciting. It's just a great time of the year.
I love it, man. And this is the great thing, about playing in Dynasty at least, is that this time of year, if you are one of the contenders, you're trading, you're trying to get a little deeper, maybe get one more stud on your team. And if you are one of the rebuilders, man, you're maybe trading a stud, getting some picks, getting some young guys, trying to reshape that team so you can make a run. So either way, you're kind of having fun. You're trying to figure it out. You're trying to do what's best for your team, and it's a whole lot of fun, man. It's a whole lot of fun either way. That's kind of the joy of Dynasty is that, you know, even if you're out of it, even if you're, 2-7, 2-8 now, 2-8, you got something to work towards. Maybe you're looking forward to that number one pick. You know, if you're in Superflex, you're looking at a Trevor Lawrence and you're drooling a little bit. And these games, the losing is actually pleasant because you're just one step closer, kind of like the Jets. You're one step closer. So on that note, let's get into the news here, man. So Thursday night, man, Colts Titans, and I'm not gonna lie, man. I thought this was gonna be a pretty even game. Thought the Titans were gonna come out with the win. The Colts said no. They dominated that game, won by double digits, and I mean, my big question is, what do you do with this backfield, man? Naheem Hines was kind of the man of the hour, 115 total yards, two touchdowns. It's like it's like playing roulette, man. You just drop your ball and it spins around, and then it lands on someone, and you win your money. One week it's JT, one week it's Hines, one week it's Wilkins. What do you do, man? What are you trying to do with this backfield?
It's really tough, it's because it's almost like the New England backfield in a way, and actually a lot of backfields now, to be honest. If we're looking around the league, we're starting to see this more and more, where you're not really sure which guy's going to be getting the touches, and it's I don't even know what to do, to be honest with you. I mean, it's really odd because they give Jonathan Taylor early touches, and then all of a sudden he kind of disappears. It's like, let's see who's the most effective against this defense, and then we're just gonna roll with it. And it just happened to be Hines this week, and you know, JT is just kind of, I don't know what to. We expected more obviously when he came out, but I mean, I still have hope for him. He's just got to shore up that fumbling, and maybe they just don't trust him quite yet. And maybe he doesn't have the plays down or something. I don't know. I mean, it's just an odd thing that he's not getting more touches recently. But I mean, when you have other guys performing like Hines did this week, I mean, I understand, going with a hot hand. It makes sense.
Yeah, a lot of people are questioning Frank Reich and well, why isn't JT getting more burn? Why isn't he on the field more? Why isn't he doing this? Why isn't he doing that? But realize this Colts team they're cooking, man. They're a good team even with Philip Rivers flaws, and there's a lot of them. He's deploying these running backs in a way that is getting him wins. So I know we all had high hopes for JT, and definitely not time to panic yet. The guy's only played, you know, in a handful of NFL games, but you know, Frank Reich doesn't care about our fantasy team. He cares about winning real NFL games. And unfortunately, if you have one or maybe even two of those guys in the Colts backfield, it's kind of throwing it up in the air and seeing what works and going with that. So let's move on here. We're going to go to the Texans and the Browns. the boys are back in town, man. Nick Chubb, 126 yards rushing, one touchdown, and one other touchdown that he did the right thing and ran out on the 1 yard line. He did not Todd Gurley it. And then you got Kareem Hunt, 132 total yards. And when Chubb went down, I think we all kind of propped Hunt up and we were like, yeah, now is his time to shine. There's no one taking away from him. But it's almost like they play better together. I don't know if it's just a chemistry thing, if they're just really good friends, what the case may be, but the two of them in that backfield make them both stronger, and they're both good players on their own. So, I don't know if there's anything else you saw in that game you wanted to talk about, or anything else you've been seeing.
I think it makes sense when you have two running backs. It just makes they're both fresher in the second half. And, it was kind of interesting because you kind of had to expect them to be running the ball a lot in this game because of the wins that they were dealing with. I would imagine the defense knew they were going to run, and they still just ran it down their throats. So, that's pretty impressive. That's the kind of offense that actually Cleveland needs. So that's going to be pretty interesting to see how that plays out the rest of the season. That can only help Baker, and now that he's hopefully not going to be dealing with the wins quite as much. Because that's just impossible, really, for almost any quarterback to deal with. Maybe with that running game being so prolific, that'll open some things up for him, and we'll see what happens. So it's a good sign for the Browns, no question. As for the Texans, it's just like a year that you're just gonna basically forget about. You don't even want to think about this season. And hopefully with the new management and everything that they'll end up, getting the ship righted, because otherwise you're wasting such a good talent at quarterback. And, it's sad to see when that kind of stuff happens.
And you bring up a really good point. We're talking about management here. It's amazing how quickly things change. A year ago, we would have talked about the Texans being an organization that is run well. They have Deshaun Watson. They have DeAndre Hopkins. Bill O'Brien is, winning a good amount of his games, winning division titles, getting that team to the playoffs. And the Browns are the Browns, no luck, no good, bad news Browns. And now, a year later, the Browns had a head coaching opening, and I think they really evaluated what their team was, saw that they had two elite backs in Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and hired a coach that would run a system that would highlight both of their abilities.
Yep.
They didn't, maybe they looked at Baker and said, hey, Baker is maybe a slight upgrade on a game manager, and let's not have him throw it 50 times a game. Let's not bring in a coach that's going to ask him to throw it 50 times a game. And now we're looking at the Texans. Bill O'Brien trades DeAndre Hopkins for a bag of balls, and now he's no longer there because, they quickly learned that without DeAndre Hopkins, even with an elite talent like Deshaun Watson, it is very hard to win games in the NFL. And we saw what DeAndre Hopkins did, and we'll talk about that in a little bit in this week to win a game. That's the kind of elite talent that DeAndre Hopkins is. And now we're almost talking about it like, well, maybe the Browns management has figured it out while the Texans management is stuck in neutral. So, a great point by you.
Thank you.
So, no problem. So, we're going to move along here. The football team against your Detroit Lions. The headline should read, a swift arrival. DeAndre Swift, man, 147 total yards, one touchdown. I think this is the start of the reign of DeAndre Swift. We did a little bit of seeing if Kerryon Johnson had anything left. We did a little bit of Adrian Peterson back there, and now I think I'm hoping anyway that they've realized that DeAndre Swift is the answer. They drafted him to be the answer at the running back position, and he's going there. And it's funny because I'll promote the FTC, the fantasy timeline chat here. You had made mention that the Washington football team would win the NFC East right before Matt Prater kicked that field goal to win the game. So
I still believe it.
I don't. I mean,
I know I'm teasing you.
And around here in the Philadelphia area, obviously after that game, there's a lot of angry people and a lot of things being said about who will win the NFC East. And yeah, I'll make mention of that when we get to that game. But yeah, there are a lot of people saying that there is going to be a team other than the Eagles winning it. So we'll see what happens. All right, let's go to the Jaguars and the Panthers. MVS is the MVP, at least of this game. 4 receptions, 149 yards, 1 touchdown, which was assisted by the ref. Maybe he had a little bit of money on that game. I don't know if you saw that play or not, Bill, but the ref ran into one Jags defender who was then pushed into another Jags defender. That kind of set that touchdown up a little bit. It's a funny play, but anything else from this game that you saw that you thought was interesting?
No, I mean that is cool about MVS. That he actually. I hear that like confidence is his biggest issue. Like that's what kind of drags him down a bit. He gets really down on himself if he messes up and that sort of thing. So it's kind of nice that maybe this will get him going a little bit, and then with Green Bay getting Lazard back as well. That's could end up being a pretty decent wide receiver core. With MVS being kind of the deep threat and having that big man with Lazard, and then just having that great X receiver and Devontae. So it could be pretty prolific. I mean, the offense could end up turning into a very good all-around offense as opposed to just going to Devontae, which might hurt, obviously. But I mean, Devontae, I was just looking in the stats in one of my leagues, and it's just crazy the average points per game that he has compared to anybody else. It's like 8 points more than the next wide receiver. So I mean, he's on just an incredible level compared to everybody else at the moment, and I still think he's top 5, but I don't think he can keep up the pace he's on right now, especially with these other guys kind of stepping up.
Well, I mean, it should be interesting because Green Bay got a lot of crap for not taking a receiver high in the draft, and then they got a lot of crap for not trading for Will Fuller. But they have Devontae Adams, who is, I think the best in the game right now. And I know arguments can be made for Hopkins and so on and so forth. But like you said, he's kind of on an unreal pace right now. But I almost wonder if this will help Adams, and not so much as to keeping up the pace or maybe even increasing the pace, but he's doing all of this when the second receiver was MVS, who he can have games like this, but he can be inconsistent too. Lazard was a much more consistent force. And now that they can't just solely lock in on him, I wonder if that actually maybe helps him a little bit and gets him, maybe more receptions or makes him more of a red zone target. I mean, I know all these things are kind of insane considering what he's been doing, but the more weapons you have on the field that a defense needs to account for, the easier it makes it for everyone on that field. And maybe all of that helps Aaron Jones, who has had a great season himself. It's hard to tell right now how it's going to all shake out, excuse me. But yeah, man, I mean, It's going to be a really good offense, and I think an offense that a lot of a lot of NFL teams are not going to want to see on their schedule coming down these last few weeks of the season. So moving here to the Eagles and the Giants. The Giants ground the Eagles and literally ground them on the ground. Daniel Jones, 64 rushing yards and a touchdown. And he got another touchdown, another rushing touchdown called back on penalty. And Wayne Gallman, 53 rushing yards, but 2 touchdowns. Anything you see from this game?
Not really. I mean, it just seems like it's two rough teams. I I don't even know what to say. Like you keep expecting a team to step up and look good, and it's just not happening. And I mean, when you lose, if you want to win a division, you have to be able to beat the Giants. Like, I mean, that's just so. I think Philly is in a lot of trouble, and I understand the Giants have a pretty good schedule coming up. So, I mean, in comparison to the other teams, at least. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe the Giants end up like sneaking in somehow. Um, I mean, what is it? Everybody's within like a game or so of each other, or a game and a half, and
Mm-hmm.
so I mean, it's still really anyone's game. I mean, we have what, 6 more games for everybody, and if a team gets hot and wins 2 or 3 games, I mean, that could be enough to win the division. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But it's just a bunch of bad teams, really, at the moment.
Yeah, and you have two teams in that division that are talent deficient in Washington and New York, and then you have two teams that are really banged up in Dallas and Philly. And it's funny because everyone in Philadelphia is now predicting the Giants to win the NFC East. And my thing is like, let's calm down a little bit. We need to realize that the 3 wins that the Giants have, 2 of them are against Washington, and 1 of them is against the Eagles. So
But
they're
that's all you got to
not.
do, right? You just got to win the division, and you're gonna win. If you win, you have the best record in the division. Odds are you're gonna win it, right?
Well, that's a possibility, but I don't. I can see the Eagles winning at least 1 game out of division. I don't know if I can say the same thing about the Giants. The Eagles did beat a slightly injured but talent wise much better San Francisco team. So we've seen that they have the ability to do it. Now I know their next 5 games is like it's a murderer's row, and
Yep.
that's what happens when the two divisions that you have to play are the NFC West and the AFC North, probably the two best divisions in football. Your schedule doesn't end up looking uh, great, but you know our fan and our DAT Network brother Rocky Petrella said, the next 5 games, they may not win a game. And then I read off who the Giants play, and I said, well, they might not win a game either. So it might be all square, the next 5 games. But yeah, that's going to be an interesting division, and I'm glad the Dallas Cowboys are doing it right. Let's just lose them all. Let's get the high draft pick. But winning that division and getting a home playoff game to get smacked around by a real team is not something I want to see done. I'd rather get the high draft pick and you know get a player and hopefully get people healthy and look forward to 2021. So, um, but that's that. So let's move on here. Let's go to the Bucks and the Panthers. Brady, man, whoo, Tom Brady bouncing back, 341 yards in the air, 4 total touchdowns. I mean, that's one thing I don't ever want to be. I don't want to be the team that has to play a Tom Brady led team after he gets embarrassed on prime time because he takes that personally, and he's gonna let out his frustration on whoever's next on the schedule. Um, Anything else you see in this one?
I mean, it was. I mean, it worked out really well for Brady just because Carolina's defense is pretty suspect, and so it just kind of came at a good time for him and not so good for Carolina. Yeah, I mean, it was nice to see him spread the ball around, but the problem is like, how are you with them having so many different weapons? I mean, it's kind of like the running backs in a lot of teams. It's just like you don't know where these targets are going to go. And I think, it's just starting to look like Antonio Brown, as long as he stays, you know, active and allowed to play by the NFL. I mean, he's vulturing a lot of targets. I think he was second on the team in targets this week and just one behind Mike Evans. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. If he's already getting to that point, it looks like he might end up being the guy that starts getting leading the team in targets coming up, and he might. God, I can't even believe I'm going to say this, but he might be worth adding if you're a playoff team that you want to roll the dice on getting a little bit of a ceiling on a guy for reasonably cheap. Um, of course, you run the risk of him not being able to play after this week. So just because of that nonsense with him, with that bicycle and all that crap, I don't even know exactly. I didn't read. I don't know exactly what happened, but I just know he was acting a fool. So, um, yeah, I mean it's interesting. Carolina also Teddy Bridgewater kind of dinged up, so he might not play. So it'd be interesting to see who they go with at quarterback. I imagine it's PJ Hill, or PJ. Is that right? PJ
Walker.
Hill, Walker. Um, it'd be nice to see him be able to play a game with a week of preparation, as opposed to just getting thrown in there like he did the last time he played. So that's really the two things. And I heard that CMC's not going to play this week, so it's another Mike Davis week. So we'll see what happens. It was nice to see DJ Moore get some touches, but he still wasn't getting a ton of targets. So that's the issue there for him. And it's going to be like one of those things where it's like an all or nothing kind of thing, just depending on if he scores a touchdown.
Yeah, so AB led the team in receptions. He had 7. Godwin and Evans had 6 apiece. He was third on the team in yards. So that's kind of an interesting switch up there. And of course, there's always a random event. It's either Mike Evans, who has 2 receptions for 2 yards and 2 touchdowns. This week it was, hey, let's get Cam Brate a touchdown, because we were all kind of expecting that. And that's going to be what this offense is. Tom Brady is going to get it to the open guy every time. That's what he does. He, doesn't know anything different. And we got to expect that. DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson had the same amount of receptions in this game. The big difference is, though, is that DJ Moore had 96 yards and a touchdown, while Robbie Anderson had 21 yards. So maybe this is the beginning of something, or maybe this is just an outlier because it's been Robbie Anderson at least leading in the yardage race. I don't think he's had a touchdown since week 1, but it's interesting to see what Matt Rule is doing with that team. And now if it is going to be PJ Walker, if the offense changes any, maybe Mike Davis gets a few more receptions in order to get the ball out of PJ Walker's hands quicker. But we'll have to see what happens. That's going to be an interesting one. So next one, Broncos Raiders, man. Broncos got hit by the J train. Josh Jacobs, 136 total yards, 2 touchdowns. That boy good. I'll say that. Anything else from this game?
I mean, Drew Lock looks awful. I mean, he just really does. He's just making terrible play after terrible play. He just makes really bad decisions, and I can't see him being their quarterback next year unless he ends up just looking incredible this last 6 games. I mean, If you can move, I have him in one league, and I'm waiting for him to blow up maybe one game and just see what I can get for him because I just don't trust him beyond this season.
Yeah, and see, I am going to disagree with you here, and I understand all the points, and honestly, you could be just as right as I am on this. We both, I think, have the same percentage chance of being right. I do think Drew Lock is going to be there next year as the starter. They may bring in a vet uh, to maybe challenge for the spot, but this is the reason why I think that I think they're going to bring up the excuse that Cortland Sutton wasn't there, and they're currently picking 11th, so they're they're out of kind of I think they're out of that range to draft one of the big three. Obviously, as we see in every draft, there's usually four or five quarterbacks taken in the first round. So maybe the Broncos do take someone at 11. I don't think they will though. I think that they'll go in another direction. So if they take a second or third rounder, is that guy automatically going to take Drew Lock out of the spot?
No,
Um,
but don't you think that they could sign a veteran that could come in and do what Nick Foles did to Trubisky? I think that's a real high likelihood, even if they don't draft someone, that that's what's going to happen. Because you can't go into next year with Drew Lock and a rookie that's not drafted in the first round as your quarterback position. You have to have something that you feel could be a step up, and I can't. That would be bad management, in my opinion, having Drew Lock be your only option as a starter.
yeah, I mean, my thing is that I think the difference between the situations, and I could be reading the tea leaves wrong, but it seems like the management in Denver likes Drew Lock currently more than the management in Chicago liked Mitch Trubisky when they traded for Nick Foles. So I mean, I think they could bring in a vet, but I don't know if they're bringing in a vet just to back up Drew Lock in case he gets hurt. Because I think that's another been hurt and playing hurt. The offensive line needs some help. I think this is kind of like, I think 2021 is going to be like kind of the last, like, all right. And maybe they do bring in a Nick Foles type. I can't think of any names off the top of my head right now, but
Ryan
you know,
Fitzpatrick.
oh, that would be fun.
But that's what
That
I'm
would.
saying. Like that's an easy decision right there, right? Like Fitzpatrick's
Oh,
not going to be there, and I mean, who's the better quarterback? There's literally no question who the better quarterback is between those two guys, in my opinion. And I can't believe that. Like, I mean, I'm not even gonna read like what the tea leaves as to like who likes who because that's such a subjective and just a guess in my opinion. It's just a
mhm.
matter like looking at it logically. You cannot go in with him as your only option at quarterback and another inexperienced quarterback unless he's a top first round pick.
Right.
So you're gonna have to sign someone. You can't go in there with Rippin as your backup this year, and so they're gonna sign somebody, and it's gonna they're not. I don't think they're gonna sign like a Mike Glennon. They're gonna sign somebody that can become the starter if necessary, and I'm on a different. It's just a matter of like I'm not as high on Lock as maybe other people are, and
Mhm.
I don't feel like he's a good quarterback. I mean, it's the same thing I feel like Baker Mayfield. Like, I don't think he's a great quarterback. It's just he might be fine, but I mean, Cortland Sutton, sure, but that's really the only guy they're missing at wide receiver. They still have all the other weapons, and he might be dinged up. I mean, there might be stuff that we can't see, and maybe I'm reading this situation wrong, but from what I've seen, I mean, I think that there's just no way you go in there without serious competition for the position.
I think we should. I think we should have a little. friendly wager on this one.
Sure.
We'll think of some terms and maybe announce it next week. Our Drew Lock bet. And
Sounds
just
good.
remember, everyone who's listening, Bill also thought Jason Garrett would be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys this year. So his
That's cool.
prediction skills.
Yeah, that's not my only predictions that are wrong. There's gonna be a lot more of those.
Dude, ain't that the truth? I was the guy standing up here saying DeAndre Hopkins was going to need time to adjust, and obviously, I was dead wrong about that one. So, but no, that'll be a little fun thing. We'll put a wager on, see who the starter in 2021 will be for the Denver Broncos. So, all right, let's move on. Chargers Dolphins. I think the rookie QBs look good in this, and I know the stat lines aren't going to show, that, especially Justin Herbert, who was going over 300 yards every week, who ended up, I think, with 182 or 183 this week. But I mean, you see both guys, fighting and doing what they could to keep their team in it and try to get a win. And of course, when it's a close game, the Chargers aren't going to win. So no matter what Justin Herbert tries to do, maybe he needs to start praying more. I don't know what he needs to do, taking his vitamins, but anything else you see from that game?
Not really. I mean, Keenan Allen's just a good wide receiver, man. Like, he's definitely he's a stud, and everybody was so down on him in the offseason because they were worried about the rookie quarterback coming in, that, he was a great deal for people who traded for him or drafted him in startups this offseason. It was nice to see Hunter Henry get some targets and some catches, but it's just tough to rely really on anybody at the moment aside from Keenan Allen. And, Tua, it wasn't the best game, but, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I'm really interested to watch him the rest of the season to see how he progresses, and I think they're going to keep it pretty conservative for him this year, and we'll see him maybe take off next year.
And the crazy thing about this team, and by the way, I mean this team is playing great. Talking about the Dolphins, right now they would have the 6th pick in the draft because they have Houston's first round pick.
Yeah.
So you're talking about a team that's young and on the rise, getting not only 2 first round picks, but one of them inside of the top 10. And that's kind of insane. And this is a team, and I know, people will probably say that I'm being too hyperbolic here, but this is a team that could get into the playoffs, and I wouldn't be shocked if especially there's 7 teams getting in this year. So
Oh, that's right.
7 teams from each division, or from each conference.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't even be shocked if they snuck in and then, beat a lower level conference winner in a road game, just because they're playing so well right now. I think they're well coached.
Yeah, I agree with that. They are definitely well coached.
And it's one of those things where you could say, oh, well, what happens if Tua gets hurt? Oh, Ryan Fitzpatrick just comes back out. Like there's no drop off, and I've talked about it with my Cowboys. It's like, all right, well, here comes, Ben DiNucci, and here comes Garrett Gilbert, who actually looked good in his game. But, there's that definite drop off from your starter to your next guy up. And there really isn't that between Tua and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Not right now, anyway,
Right.
So that also kind of gives you a little bit of hope that, if your signal caller gets dinged up or hurt or taken out of a game, you have a guy who has just been good for the last year and a half back out there thrown to the same guys. So I want to throw this up real quick, Bill, though. Lindsey Kennedy in the chat, talking about our bet here. Who's going to wear a dress? Well, I mean, I wouldn't mind making that.
Who's not going to wear a dress?
I mean, I wouldn't mind making that the terms of the of the bet, but I don't. I don't think anybody wants to see that. But hey, listen,
It'll
if
be a
that's what
moo.
if we decide on that, I can't even borrow a dress from my wife because putting it on, I'd probably split the thing in half. So, you know, to find something for a 6'2", 280 pound guy might be a little bit hard. While Bill is drinking his hard seltzer with the pinky up. But yeah, so we'll figure out those terms though. Maybe somebody will wear a dress. Who knows? Maybe we could do something with charity or something like that, and have that kind of go on. Our man Steve Dennis, who says, "Sadly, I kind of want to see that." Steve, you don't want to see that, my man. I'm telling you right now. I barely look presentable in male clothing. You do not want to see me in a dress, man.
Well, you should
Bill,
probably.
Bill, yes, Bill, you do.
Hell
Bill has the
yeah.
body for it, but
Oh
me,
yeah.
you don't want to see
Oh
that, man.
yeah.
I promise you, you don't want to see that. Uh, so all right, let's move on to our next game here. Bills Cardinals. We talked about it earlier. Is there anything DeAndre
I thought you
Hopkins
meant
can't do?
my Cardinals.
What's up?
I
What's
thought you meant
up?
my Cardinals.
Your Cardinals?
Yeah, you said
Oh,
Bills Cardinals, and I was like, what?
oh! I was like, wait, I didn't even put the two together.
Sorry.
Um, no, you're good. He went 7 for 127 and the game-winning touchdown, which was amazing. And I don't know if you saw the tweet he put out where he put that picture up and said, "Make a meme, and I'll pick a winner and send them a signed jersey." And someone, I don't know who made this meme, but it was great. It was him catching it, and the title on top was, yeah, people trying to get out of Houston, and the ball was the ticket out. DeAndre Hopkins is catching it, and then you see James Harden, Russell Westbrook, somebody somebody else. It was hilarious. It was a good meme. But anything you see from that game, Bill?
I mean, not really. I mean, it was pretty impressive. Kyler Murray, I mean, that last pass was just ridiculous.
Man,
He had to kind of contort his body to square up and then just flick it. It was impressive and totally impressive with Hopkins' catch. But I mean, I think one of the Bills guys, like took out two of his own guys to kind of help him out a little bit. But yeah, it was a fun game. Josh Allen drove down, got them threw a great pass to Diggs to take the lead, and it was just a crazy freak play that Arizona was able to come back and win. So yeah, it was just a fun game. It was a good game with two young quarterbacks that we should probably be seeing that a lot over the course of the next decade.
yeah, and if we're lucky, maybe we'll get a Bills Cardinals Super Bowl at some point and watch those guys on the biggest stage duel it out. So Seahawks Rams. This game did not go as planned. The Jared Goff and Russell Wilson combined for 0 touchdowns, as we planned it. Also, as we planned it, Alex Collins and Malcolm Brown combined for 3 touchdowns. So exactly what we thought was going to happen. Yeah. Anything else from that game? That was just kind of a very weird game.
Yeah, that's odd. I didn't even realize that there was 0 touchdowns for the quarterbacks. Yeah, I mean that's just one of those weird fluky games that happens, and don't expect the same next week. Uh, yeah, I really don't have much for that one.
Yeah, it was pretty self-explanatory there. 49ers and Saints. 49ers and Saints. Alvin Kamara is just so damn good. 98 yards, 3 touchdowns. But obviously the big news is Drew Brees goes down, 5 cracked ribs, a punctured lung. The fact that he was out there and ended that half is kind of amazing because I've had bruised ribs before and I know how much that hurts. So I can't imagine 5 broken ribs and a punctured lung. Like, that's insane. And, some of the reports are saying that it's going to be 2 to 3. He'll only be out for 2 to 3 weeks. I mean, listen, they're NFL players. They have the best doctors in the world. They have, pain medications that we've probably never even heard of. But man, if he comes back in 2 weeks, he is a warrior. And I mean, Sean Payton said it during the post game press conference. Drew Brees has never asked out of a game for the entire time they've been together. So when he told him during halftime that he couldn't go back in, he knew something was wrong. And we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully it's only 2 weeks, but man, I mean, it could be a lot longer. Anything else you see from this, Bill?
No, but yeah, I remember was a few years back when Watson had a punctured lung, and he ended up playing like immediately. Like he didn't even miss a game, I don't think. It was pretty incredible. Like and he couldn't even fly with the team because you couldn't fly with
Yeah.
that. So he actually had to drive to Florida for the game, I believe it was, and that's pretty incredible when guys could do that, and that they're willing to do that. Because it's like, how do you even play with that? Like, it just blows my mind. But yeah, it will be interesting to see what Jameis does in place of Breeze, and I'm pretty sure he's probably the guy that's going to be getting the 90% of the plays at quarterback. So it'll be interesting to see with him with the week of prep as a QB1, and see maybe he is a little bit more disciplined in the system and with a coach who kind of demands it. And, we'll see what happens. But that's a game I'll definitely have my eyes on this week.
And I hope he watches that Teddy Bridgewater film from last year, because Teddy Bridgewater, I think it was 5 games that he pretty much was able to try out for the entire league. And those games got him paid in Carolina. And it might be a shorter sample size for Jameis, but if he can put similar results on tape, we've been talking about it a little bit. I think there's going to be more QB openings than we think,
Like Drew
and maybe
Lock.
more QB. Bill says Drew Lock. I'm thinking more like Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco may be gone. I can't believe Phillip Rivers is around in Indy. If the Jets take a QB at 1, maybe they want to sit that guy and bring in someone to do that and be that kind of starter, that mentor, while a number 1 overall pick sits for a little bit and learns. That may be the least likely of all situations. But yeah, man, I mean, Jameis could be in that situation, or he could be the quarterback of the Saints if Drew Brees retires after this season. So a lot of opportunity for Jameis to make himself a lot of money and assure himself a starting spot in the NFL next year. So we're going to move on here to the Bengals and the Steelers, man. Big Ben, I think he's been kind of an unsung hero this year. He doesn't get talked about a lot because obviously, Chase Claypool is having his blow up games, and Deontay Johnson he's so damn good when he's on the field. Juju over the last month or so has just been kind of lights out every game. James Conner was doing well until the last couple of weeks, and Big Ben kind of gets pushed down that list, but 334 yards in the air and 4 touchdowns. Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 touchdowns. Bill, I think this is a guy, if you're a contender, dude, throw a pick if he's on a rebuilding team's roster, and get that guy for the stretch run, because I think that whole offense besides James Conner is heating up right now. I mean, these receivers almost every game. I mean, Big Ben had 3 top 10, I believe, wide receivers this week. Like, that's insane, and he has guys that do everything. I mean, Chase Claypool is a monster that can beat you with 4.4 speed. Deontay Johnson can catch anything. Juju Smith Schuster just runs every route in the tree. It's just like no matter what you try to throw at him, he can get you. So, what do you think about that? Is there, or I should say, is there anything else you saw from this game?
No, I mean that they had kind of struggled running the ball. So Pittsburgh, that is, and so that's a little bit of a concern. But it's gonna be great for Ben, and I agree that he's a great add for a contender. I'm in a league that I had Ben, and I'm not. It was an orphan I took over, so I was not contending by any means, and I traded him away to a contender and a one QB for a second rounder. And I figure that's a good buy for the contender because it's a late second, and they're getting a quarterback that could potentially be, a very consistent, solid QB1 for them, uh, with all those weapons. So Ben's not the Ben of old, but he's still a great quarterback. And as much as I think he's a scum, like him as a player he's fantastic. And he obviously has some physical issues. You see him always tinkering with his elbow and stuff during the game, and that's a concern. In Superflex, it's probably not a bad idea to add Mason Rudolph if you have deep rosters, just in case. Um, but Ben looks really good, and he's just a true pro. And with those weapons and a good quarterback, that's a pretty good combo. Cincy, that's who they played, right? Cincy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, they're still. I mean, I like them. I really like the promise of that team, and there is definite skill on that offense now. Um, who knows how good that defense is going to get, which is actually good for any guys that you have on Cincy's offense. So uh, T. Higgins looks phenomenal. Boyd looks really good. And obviously Burrow looks pretty solid for a rookie. So it's that's an offense I want pieces of going into next year for sure.
100%. And I've been trying to trade for pieces of that offense, and have been shut down at every turn. So I think a lot of people are feeling the same way. Uh, we'll go to the final two games, which we may not talk about for all that much. Ravens Patriots. Patriots backfield, man, they blow up. Damian Harris, 121 rushing yards. Rex Burkhead, 66 total yards, 2 touchdowns. Anything else from this game?
Man, Ravens are just I don't even know what to say about them. I was talking about this on another pod, and it's just like, who do you trust on that offense right now? I mean, really, the only guy I feel comfortable starting. I mean, if in a one, obviously you're starting Lamar and Superflex, and probably even in one QB, but that's still a tough start in that situation. Um, the only guy I feel comfortable starting right now is Mark Andrews. Everybody else I don't feel comfortable with, and Mark Andrews is just a middle of the road tight end. So like, there's nobody I'm stoked about starting. It's a tough one for that offense. Just has not clicked, and whether it's the coaching, whether it's just these players not taking the next step, I don't know. I know the offensive line's not as good. I mean, that's an obvious situation that they're going to need to correct. But if there's one team that will, I'm not going to freak out and just sell everybody because I feel like they will right the ship. It's just a matter of if there's a team that's good enough to, make the proper adjustments. Baltimore's one of those teams. So
Yeah, and you feel confident in one more player than I do. Like obviously they have a bunch of guys who can blow up at any time, and that's obvious. But man, it's tough out there, and at every position I shouldn't say probably, but you may have a better option. Even with Mark Andrews, man, if you have like Hayden Hurst, you're probably feeling more comfortable right now starting Hayden Hurst, and obviously Hayden Hurst can't have a big, 130-yard, 2-touchdown game like Mark Andrews can, but you just kind of like You know, Hayden Hurst is going to get you some points every week, and Mark
Yeah, you don't
Andrews.
feel worse playing him at least, right? Like, I mean, it's
Right.
not. Yeah, that's a good point.
All right, let's move on to the Vikings Bears. If you like defense, this was the game for you. Um, I will say one guy who was out there and was doing the damn thing though, Justin Jefferson, 8 receptions, 135 yards. Yes, Adam Thielen got the 2 touchdowns, but my God, that kid is a stud. He is a stone cold stud.
I'll be honest with you. There isn't any rookie wide receiver I don't want on a team.
Okay.
I
Okay.
mean, like of all, like let's say the top 10 wide receivers, I can't say there's one top 10 wide receiver I'm disappointed in. It's crazy. Like probably every wide receiver drafted in the top 2 rounds of rookie drafts, and Justin Jefferson's right at the top. Like it's
Yes.
crazy. You know, it's
Let me throw you a name since you said that. Jalen Rager.
I'm happy. I'd be happy to have him on my team.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean he's been hurt and he's getting the targets and he's getting the air yards for the team. So all of the peripherals look good for him.
Mhm.
And so I honestly I wouldn't mind making moves for him right now because of the situation and all of that and everybody's negative on the team, on Philly. I would be more apt to buy him than consider selling him.
Okay.
Mm,
I wasn't high on him going in, so
sure.
obviously not high on him now. But I wanted to see if that was a name that would make you pause. But you
No.
seem like you're still in.
Mm,
So which I mean, if you were in beforehand, I mean, and this is what I tell people all the time: you can't let half of a season take you off of a guy that you felt good about going into the process. You know what I mean?
well,
It's kind of the JT argument.
yeah, and he comes back his first game after injury, and he's the leading target guy. He's getting a real high target percentage, and he's getting a ton of air yards. So, like, that's a pretty good sign when he just comes back. And granted, I understand there's not a lot of other guys to compete with, but Travis Fulgham has done well. So, for him all of a sudden to just jump in and all of a sudden get that volume and that opportunity, that's a pretty good sign. So. I'm positive about him. I'm not like super stoked or anything, but I don't mind even paying like I mean granted people aren't going to sell him cheap, I don't think yet.
Mm-mm.
But maybe by the end of the season if things are still not quite going well, you might be able to get him at a discount and it might benefit you next year to have him on your roster.
And one more question from this game:
Okay.
uh, Is it time to bring Mitch back? We saw Nick Foles get hurt at the end of that game, and
Yeah.
obviously, no, I don't want to see anybody get hurt, man. It looked like a bad injury, even though now they're saying it might not be bad, but
It looked bad.
it looked bad. I mean, and the Bears are saying, no, it's not bad. It's not bad at all. It's like, all right.
It's probably all
Uh,
that front weight that threw him off and screwed his back up.
Listen, man, women can get reduction surgery when they have weight in the front throwing them off, but men, we don't have that option. There's if there's too much weight in the front, you just got too much weight in the front, man. It's not good for you. Um, but I mean, is it time to bring Mitch back? Look, I mean, they
Well, you
they were
should.
winning. Yeah,
I
I just
mean, is Foles the answer long term? Obviously not, right?
no.
Like, so what are you gonna do? You throw the young guy back in, see what you have. He looked okay before they pulled him. I'm not saying he looked great, but he looked okay. Give him that opportunity at the end of the season. He's had another 8 games to prepare and learn and do all of that. If he hasn't progressed, then you know what you got to do this offseason. And that answers your question. But like, why not throw him back in? And that's with a
Yeah,
guy who has a ton of Nick Foles on his rosters. Like, just because he's super cheap and got him in the offseason for super cheap. But, like, and I have very little Trubisky. But I think you still got to put Trubisky back in and see what you have to make sure you're making the right choice going into the offseason. And they're probably getting rid of all of they might end up getting rid of like the coaching staff. So if that's the case,
I have to.
then Do you think they will, or do you not think they will?
No, I said they have to.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah. So
I don't see a way how anyone. I mean, apparently it was Major Laser was out there calling the offense this week. It looked like the same damn offense I've seen for the last 4 weeks from Matt Nagy. So I don't know. Major Laser was out there. I don't know what the hell he was doing. Maybe
I
he
love
was
Major Laser,
he
the
was in
DJ group.
concert. Maybe he was in concert and not really calling the damn plays, but it looked the same. And I think um, you threw me off with that one, Bill. So what I forget it. I don't even know what I was going to say. You threw me off. God
All
damn
right,
it
let's go to the
with your
timeline.
comment. Yeah, we're gonna see what we saw on the timeline, and I'm not going to explain what Bill wrote in the chat. This is the reason why you should come on YouTube 9 o'clock every Wednesday so you can see what the hell Bill is typing in the chat right now. All right. So this first one here is from our man, Jerry O'Shea at Jerry Shea FF. Dynasty 12 team Superflex tight end premium. Cam Akers or Robert Woods. And he writes in here, this is a rebuilding team versus a playoff team. So we can either just say who we like more, or we can explain both points of view. So Bill, who you got? You got Cam or you got Bobby Trees?
I'm taking Robert Woods, but I get the trade with it being a rebuild versus playoff team. But if I'm not in either situation, I'm taking Robert Woods.
Yeah, straight up. If I didn't know what the team was, I'm taking Robert Woods. I do think, though, if you're a rebuilding team, that you should be able to get something added to Cam Akers for Robert Woods. And, again, these are the kind of moves, every league is different. So I can say that just on a general basis, but maybe as the rebuild, you've been trying to trade Robert Woods and this is the best offer you got, then you should probably take it, because we are looking at all these other running backs. We're looking at the CEH and the JTs, and yeah, they're not doing what we thought they were going to do, but we've seen those flashes. I don't think we've seen that as much from Cam Akers because he's not out on the field as much, but this is kind of the buy low opportunity. If you were in on Cam Akers, and I was in on Cam Akers before the draft, maybe this is all right. Like maybe next year, Malcolm, they try to gear it more towards Cam Akers, and maybe 2021, that's how you kind of talk yourself into it.
Yeah, actually, I was on Super Flexible yesterday, and we were talking about like what are the buys right now, and my answer was all of the rookie running backs. So
Yeah.
like pretty much any of those guys I'm willing to pay at their current market value. Even Swift, who's valued higher, right now because of his performance. But yeah, any of those guys I'm willing to pay for. But I think the issue with Akers in particular is that he has not performed at all. Like everybody else has an excuse in a way or a higher expectation. And I think people that have Akers are going to want more than what people that want to buy him want to pay for him.
And I think Cam Akers is I think he's someone that you should look to add during this year's draft.
Like what do you pay? Yeah, like what do you what is value right now for you? I guess is my question. Like what are you paying for him? Like if you were going to make an offer right now.
God, it's so tough.
I know, just whatever first thing that comes to your mind.
Well, the right answer,
okay,
is a first.
I'm not paying that.
But I'm not paying that.
Right, so that's why I'm asking you. You don't have to tell me what the right answer is. Just tell me what you're paying.
But that's where the hesitation is, because it's almost
nobody's going to sell him for a second.
Right. No one is
So
selling him for a second.
yeah, so that's my point is like you're not going to see a lot of trades for him right now. So you're making a good point of doing it at um at the draft day or around draft time. That makes a lot more sense because people will kind of be like I don't want to take the risk of him having another stinker of a year.
Well, and we're gonna see in this year's draft, and obviously, like things are gonna change from you know the middle of May, where most drafts are probably gonna start until from now until then. But like, I'm just looking at a mock draft right now. One, two, three, four of the top 15 actual real life NFL picks are slated to be quarterbacks. So, if four or five or six quarterbacks go in the first round, you're getting a similar number in the first round of your super flex draft, which
For sure.
means guys that you really like are going to get pushed down. So if there's let me just see if I can pull a name here real quick, like this is compelling right now. All right, like Rondell Moore,
Yep, Rondo.
maybe
Yeah.
he gets pushed down to the first pick of the second round. Now all of a sudden, you know, if you're not a Rondell Moore fan, do you go, hey, you got Cam Akers, I got this 201, you want to make a deal? And someone who's a big Rondell Moore fan might be like, yeah. And listen, I'm not a Devy guy. I'm not good at this, so I'm sorry if you are a Devy person and you're like, there's no way in hell Rondell Moore is lasting to the 13th pick. I
No.
apologize. It was just,
An
the
example.
first
Right.
the first name I saw. I I,
Yep.
I don't want to offend the peoples. But yeah,
At
like
Real Fantasy TL.
yes, it's right on the bottom there. You can see it right there, right there, right there. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of like it's the same logic if we go to the 2020 draft. Like, T. Higgins was like a top three pick in the second round uh in most rookie drafts. Like someone like, if you have a Cam Akers and someone's like, oh man, a top three pick, it's gonna get me something good. Like that's when you make the trade. So um, do that. But yeah, we both go with Woods in a vacuum, but we also understand it for the rebuilding team. And 55-45. So in favor of Cam Akers, actually. So maybe we're totally wrong about all this shit.
I'm not wrong.
Well, me neither, but I'm just saying, like, we have to pretend to be humble. Come on, Bill. Remember the pre-show
Be
meeting?
humble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, this is from another one of the friends of the show here, Dave at Dave Sorrell. This is a contender trade, 12-team PPR. The first round pick in this trade is going to probably be one of the last four picks of the first round. So Dobbins, someone we talked about a little bit earlier, and a 2021 first, and again, that's probably going to be one of the last four picks, or Nicholas Chubb. Bill's thinking here.
First will likely be playoffs, so it's a late first.
So I'll go first while Bill mulls this over, and
Thank you.
it's not hard for me. Maybe it should be, but it's not. I'm going with Nick Chubb. I mean, we've seen Nick Chubb. We know what Nick Chubb is. We know what he can do. And yes, again, first round picks, they're going to be valuable, as soon as January. They're going to be very valuable. But I like the guy that has the top five upside. Maybe J.K. Dobbins shows that in 2021, and I'm totally wrong. But looking at it on its face right now, I'm going to go with Nick Chubb.
Yeah, so like it being a contender trade, I think that's the correct answer. Dobbins isn't doing anything for you this year, and the first isn't doing anything for you this year. Just so to be able to add a starter in your lineup for the playoffs, I think that's a great trade for you.
There you go. So, Dave, I hope you got yourself some Nick Chubb. But again, and I think this may be a case of people just not reading the question completely. The Dobbins in the first got 57% of the vote, while Nick Chubb only got 43%. But I'm wondering if that's because people did not read that this was a contender trade. Now, just my 2 cents. So this next one, Tribe Called Best. I like that name. At My Fantasy Crew. Weekend.
Great name.
Great name. Week 11 fantasy football flex / wide receiver dilemma. CeeDee Lamb at Minnesota or DJ Chark versus Pittsburgh. If you're trying to fill that flex, you got CeeDee Lamb or DJ Chark.
I'm taking CeeDee Lamb. I would much prefer that wide receiver against a Minnesota defense that's suspect, as opposed to Chark with a quarterback that I don't trust against that defense. So it's pretty easy for me at CeeDee Lamb.
You don't trust Booty Scoot and Jake Luton? What?
Well,
I can't believe this, man.
Can you trust somebody named Booty Scoot and Jake Luton?
Listen, man. Sometimes that booty scoots, man, and you just got to go with it, man. No, I'm with you though. I'm going with CeeDee Lamb. Yes, the Cowboys' offense has looked horrific since the Dak Prescott injury. They looked passable. Actually, looked passable against Pittsburgh, which is very strange. With Garrett Gilbert throwing the ball. I do think that Andy Dalton is an upgrade from Garrett Gilbert, no matter how well he played. So, but yeah, it's about that defense, man. Pittsburgh they're a lights out defense, man. And they've shown it pretty much every week in 2020. So I'm not going to bet on Jake Luton and DJ Chark unlocking the code to defeating the Pittsburgh defense. So yeah, give me CeeDee Lamb and we'll hope for the best on that one. This last one, which is a very interesting question. I found it right before we went on. So we'll see what we all say here. But this is from St. Patrick FF at St. Patrick FF. Zeke plus what equals Saquon? And this is a dynasty question. So what are you adding to Zeke to get Saquon?
Tony Pollard.
Okay.
Then I have the Dallas offense. The Dallas running backs compared to the Giants.
Okay, so what if you are selling? If you're selling Saquon, that's what you're asking for. You're asking for Tony Pollard to complete the set. If you're trying to buy Saquon, are you still adding Tony Pollard and hoping to get that deal done?
Yeah, okay. If I'm buying Saquon, that's what I'm offering.
Okay. If you're selling Saquon, what do you want?
Probably a little bit more than that, just because of age difference. I would probably want like a, I don't know. That's a really tough question because it's so. I think I would want like a. Yeah, it's probably very similar, whether it's Pollard or somebody similar or something of similar value. Like that's kind of where I'm at, I think.
You want a high end running back up like a Alexander Madison, a Tony Pollard, something
like a
in
mid
that
to high
range.
second value on top of Zeke, because I'm getting you're saving yourself 3 years in running backs age, or 2 years.
Now, I know you're going to call me crazy here.
Crazy?
Yeah. I don't think I add anything, and here's the reason. Here's the reason why though. Yes, is Zeke on the struggle bus right now? 100%. And actually, it's funny that you brought Tony Pollard up because Tony Pollard actually looks like the better running back right now. But I also think that we have forgotten what Zeke looked like with Dak on the field. He was pretty damn good. I think he was like running back 2 or 3 before Dak was hurt. So if we're assuming that, this Dak injury was just a freak thing and he's going to be out there next year and he's going to be as reliable as he had been the first 4.25 years of his career, I think I'm getting a top 5 back. And, with Saquon, I think he's also a top 5 back. I'm a little bit more worried about the back-to-back injuries.
Valid.
But I think he's a top 5 back as well. So if I'm trading a top 5 back for a top 5 back, it's kind of to me like, why would I want to add something to that when I'm pretty much where I feel like I'm getting very similar products, which is why I know a lot of people hate positional trades where you trade one position for something at the same position, because if you're trading guys in a similar tier, what are you really gaining? But that's actually kind of the reason why I wouldn't want to add something, just because like I think you're talking about two guys that can easily be top 5 backs in 2021, and why would I do that?
I'm just looking at market trade. You know what I mean? Market value. I understand like you're looking at actual value. I'm looking at like what the market as a whole values those 2 players, and it's going to be greater by a bit for Barkley than Zeke, and so that's why I would do it. Like I would much prefer to have Barkley in August than Zeke. And because I think that I can get more for Barkley before the season starts than I can Zeke.
Oh yeah, I agree. I agree with that sentiment.
Yep.
And if your goal in getting Barkley is to wait the few months, or actually wait like almost a year, and then sell him, then yeah, I think you add a little bit, you get Barkley, and then you sell him off for whatever. But if you were trading for these guys to have them on your team in 2021 and have them scoring you points in 2021, then it's a different story. But I agree with you. The points that they're gonna gain for your fantasy team is going to be pretty similar. But what you will be able to sell a healthy Saquon for is going to be more than what you can sell a healthy Zeke for.
100%.
So yeah, it's a interesting dichotomy there where you have the real value versus the perceived value, which is always fun because there aren't too many people where the real value and the perceived value match up, and I think we're talking about 2 guys that fall into that category. So, nice little philosophical question to end this episode. Thank you to everyone that was in the chat. I mean, you guys were lit. We had Lindsay Kennedy asking us to wear dresses and talking about surgeries. We had Steve Dennis in here who said he wanted to see one of us in a dress, which, all right, Steve, I ain't mad at you. People were in and out, man. It's so much fun. You guys definitely make the show more fun when you guys are giving us questions, giving us comments, making fun of us. It's all fun. We love it. If you're watching this on YouTube, just remember, man, hit the bell. Subscribe so that you know when we go live. It's just a nice little reminder that you get. And it's not just us, man. Whenever anyone on the network does something on YouTube, you're going to get that too. And trust me, we got the trade addicts, Russ and Brian. Those guys are legends. Those guys are elite. Then you get the dynasty junkies. Those guys are, they knock it out of the park every episode. We have Casey Kasem with us now, who's doing Get Real with Casey Kasem. If you're not subscribed to that pod, you're making a mistake. The latest episode with Matthew Betts was a banger. I meant to put that in the chat today, in the DAP chat, and I forgot. So hopefully she's listening. If not, I'll probably just do it after the show anyway.
There you go.
But yeah, you'll get access to all of those people, and guess what? All of those people, except for me, are real super smart. So anytime you can see them on a screen is a good time. Bill's sighing deeply right now. And then if you're listening to us on podcast, man, appreciate that too. If you just stumbled upon us, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you tell your friends and your family. Let them subscribe as well. Hit us with a rate and review too. Those are always fun to read. People usually like us. Some people don't, and that's cool too. Hey, whatever. And we appreciate it. An hour and 15 minutes in, you could literally be doing anything else, and you decided to listen to us talk. So we thank you all. And on that note, Bill, we are out of here.